Several organizations state that no UVC radiation reaches the Earth's surface. It's wrong. I have data to prove that.
This is Dane Wigington with geoengineeringwatch.org. As we plunge ever further into uncharted territory on planet Earth, an issue that has been completely overlooked, that is of grave importance, is the rapidly disintegrating ozone layer of our planet. This issue by itself is a near-term existential threat. Geoengineeringwatch.org first began to meter the intense UV radiation in 2014. And we reported on this in 2014 that we were getting UVC on the surface of the planet. When we first posted this information, our website was taken down within 15 minutes and was taken down 8 times in the next 3 days. We had to acquire more security for our website.
My dedication is to this planet, to my kids, my family. And, you know, the work that I do is well beyond passion. It's a necessity. And this is what I have to do. It just is what I have to do. On days when I don't want to get out of bed, I get out of bed and I take data. It's just that kind of a thing. It's extremely critical, and it's been whitewashed over the years to the point to where it's so complicated of a science issue that no one wants to be involved with it. Like you were saying, Geoengineering Watch supplied a piece of equipment. It's a lab instrument. It's a spectral radiometer, and it has incredible features with it. It scans between 200 and 450 nanometers, and it has sub-nanometer resolution. I can basically take data from 1/6 of a nanometer, from 200 nanometers to 450 nanometers. And the idea first came into my head back in 2016 about doing such a thing, because I had been working with NASA satellite data for about 2 years. And the last data I worked with was from the Ceres satellite. And the problem I encountered was that all of the data stops at 300 nanometers. They'll scan from 300 on up, but the scanning microbolometer that they use with the Ceres satellite system stops at 300 nanometers.
On that point, Ray, for the listeners, let's take a moment to educate them on how the UV radiation spectrum breaks down. We have, it's from 400 to 320 is UVA, Ray, is that correct?
Yeah, I usually start at the high end of the spectrum and work up towards the visible light.
Which would be above 400 nanometers, would that be correct?
400 nanometers and above is visible to infrared.
And UVB starting from 320 to 280 nanometers, I believe UVC from 280 to 100. Is that correct, I think, Ray?
Yes.
We're told officially that all incoming UV radiation, or the percentage of incoming UV radiation is 95% UVA, 5% UVB, and no UVC. That's what we're officially told. And that is patently false, is it not, Ray?
I have yet to find the person who's doing those measurements.
But that's what's officially stated.
Officially stated, several organizations state that no UVC radiation reaches the Earth's surface. It's wrong. I have data to prove that.
And we metered even before your work, which is the most advanced work on the subject at all. But even with more basic readings that we took with less sophisticated metering equipment before you took over with, again, more expertise. But we were showing levels of UVC on the surface as well. And this is easily detectable with the right metering equipment, but yet it's being systematically hidden. Is that not true?
It is being hidden. For what reasons, I'm unsure of at this point.
Wouldn't you think it to be, I mean, the ramifications are beyond grave. I mean, this is something if the public was aware of, I would say that's a very evident reason that to avoid panic, because the loss of the ozone layer is an existential threat. And if you compress the ozone layer to a single molecular layer at sea surface, it's the thickness of 2.5 dimes, 6 millimeters, that allows life to exist on this earth. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, under the standard column of air at sea level, we're looking at maximum of about 1/4 of an inch. And right now, because of the depletion that's been taking place over the last 40, 50 years, I would be surprised if it is 2 dimes worth right now. I think it's far less than 6 millimeters.
Given the readings we are getting, yes. I mean, I certainly agree. That's an assessment of what it would be if it was intact, which it certainly is not intact. The increase in UVC radiation that from readings you took from 2019 to 2020, there was a profound increase. Is that correct?
Yeah. Now I started back in 2016. My first radiation measurements were at Mount Hamilton, and that was at an altitude of about 4,300 feet. So there was an air column. I knew the astronomer at the observatory, and he gave me access to electricity, and I set up there and I did a 6-hour session, took the data home, and I couldn't believe the data, Dane. It scared the bejeebers out of me, because UVC was extremely high. I mean, I was seeing 1.5 to 1.6 microwatts per square centimeter in the UVC region.
To put that into context on UVC again, we are told 0 UVC should reach the planet.
No, that's incorrect.
Correct.
In 1994-95, when I worked at NASA, our goal was to establish a platform for sensors to monitor the ozone layer at 80,000 feet. Okay, that's my first exposure to the conundrum with the ozone destruction. NASA has changed the verbiage on their website. They now state most UVC is absorbed by our upper atmosphere. And there is some truth in that.
To elaborate on what most means, when NASA says now, instead of all UVC being stopped at altitude 100,000 feet up, now most of it is stopped. I equate that to stating the ship we're floating on is mostly watertight. And that's not good enough. That's not good enough. You're not going to get far on a ship that's mostly watertight. And that hole in the bottom of the boat is getting bigger by the day. Is that a correct assessment, Ray? The hole, i.e., the ozone depletion scenario is getting worse by the day. Would you consider that a correct statement?
Absolutely. I've seen anywhere from a 7 to 10% reduction in our ozone layer because of the increased intensity of the UVC region since 2016, Dane.
And that's a very short increment of time for that type of increase. Now, in regard to UVC, you saw a much larger percentage increase still from 2019 to 2020 in 1 year. Is that correct?
Yes. I have seen, in some areas of the spectrum, I have seen as much as 150 to 200% increase over the last year.
To put it in the simplest terms possible, if that type of increase continues for any length of time, it will soon be game over for terrestrial life on planet Earth. Is that a correct statement?
That's exactly right. 2016, when I took the data home from Mount Hamilton, I did a trend analysis that all things remaining the same, by 2025, we would not be able to grow crops outdoors in direct sunlight.